You close your bedroom door, you don't think about it, you don't announce it, you just close it and something shifts. Nobody is watching now, nobody is listening. You can lie down, stare at the ceiling, scroll your phone, or do absolutely nothing, and for this small stretch of time, that's entirely your business. Now take the door away, take away the bedroom, take away the house, take away the idea that you can simply disappear for an hour whenever you need to. You are surrounded, constantly, by the same people who eat beside you, sleep beside you, raise children beside you, and notice the moment something is wrong with you. How do you survive a life where being alone is almost never guaranteed? And here's the strange part. Ancient humans didn't live without privacy simply because they hadn't invented doors yet. They had to solve a much older problem. How much access should other people have to you? Because privacy isn't just being physically alone. It's deciding who can see you, who can hear you, who can touch you, who gets to know something about you. And when you have no bedroom door, no lock, no private bathroom, and no room you can disappear into, those boundaries have to come from somewhere else. For most of human history, people lived in much closer physical proximity than most of us experience today. That doesn't mean everyone was constantly watching everyone else. It means privacy had to be created differently. Imagine nightfall at a small hunter-gatherer camp. The fire is burning low, people are sleeping close together. Someone turns over, a child wakes briefly, someone coughs, another person quietly gets up and moves toward the edge of the shelter. There is no hallway, no closed bedroom, no door separating one person from everyone else. And yet that person may still have a socially understood boundary, a little distance, a moment alone, a place where others simply don't follow. That's the first thing we get wrong about ancient privacy. We imagine privacy as a room, but a room is only one way of creating a boundary. A boundary can also be created by distance, by custom, by relationship, by ritual, or simply by everyone understanding that a certain moment belongs to one person, and that changes the entire question. Because if you remove the walls, you don't necessarily remove privacy, you force humans to negotiate it. Think about something as ordinary as sleep. Tonight, you close a door, turn off the light, and disappear into your own room. For many people living in modern societies, sleep is almost completely private. But in many documented hunter-gatherer societies, sleeping arrangements were far more communal. People could sleep near relatives, partners, children, and other members of the group, often around a central hearth or within the same shelter. The exact arrangement varied enormously with climate, season, shelter design, group size, and culture. There was no single ancient sleeping arrangement, but the basic difference is easy to imagine. You wake up at 3 in the morning, and instead of seeing an empty room, you see other people sleeping nearby. You hear breathing, you hear movement, you know who is there, and they know you're there too. So could you ever truly disappear? Maybe not completely, but that doesn't mean you had no control over yourself. Because privacy doesn't require invisibility, it requires some control over access. A person could move away from the center of the group. They could choose when to speak. They could choose what information to share. They could avoid certain conversations. They could create temporary distance. And the group could recognize that distance as meaningful. That is a very different kind of privacy from the one you know, but it is still a boundary. And this becomes even more interesting when you move beyond sleep. Think about something modern humans rarely have to negotiate consciously: going to the bathroom. Today you close a door. Nobody follows you. Nobody asks what you're doing. You don't have to explain why you need 5 minutes alone. The architecture handles the boundary for you. But in a small group living without permanent rooms, bodily functions could not always be separated by walls, so other mechanisms mattered. Distance, timing, social expectations, cultural rules. In some societies, certain bodily activities, situations, or interactions became surrounded by customs that told people when to approach, when to wait, and when to stay away. The exact rules differed from culture to culture, and that's important. There was no universal ancient privacy system, but humans repeatedly created social boundaries even when physical boundaries were limited. A culture doesn't need a door to say, "Don't come here, don't ask that, wait. This moment is private." And that may be one of the most sophisticated things humans ever invented. A boundary that exists because everyone agrees it exists. Think about it. A locked door works because the physical world prevents you from entering. A social boundary works because other people understand that entering would violate something. One uses would, the other uses trust. And trust becomes extremely important when you're living with the same people every day. Because in a small group, people notice things. They notice when you're sick, they notice when you're angry, they notice when you're unusually quiet. They notice when you stop contributing. They notice when you've been avoiding someone. They may notice your relationships, your habits, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your conflicts without you ever explaining them. Modern life gives you the ability to disappear. You can close the door, put on headphones, turn off your phone, get into your car, take a walk. You can be physically surrounded by millions of people and still become completely unreachable. Ancient humans often had far less of that luxury. And that sounds terrible, until you realize what constant visibility gave them in return. If you fell, someone could notice. If you were injured, someone was nearby. If a child woke up, someone else might already be awake. If someone became sick, the people around them could recognize the change. If you were struggling emotionally, you didn't necessarily have to announce it before someone noticed. The same social environment that reduced privacy could increase protection. That's the contradiction at the heart of this entire story. Modern privacy gives you freedom from other people's attention. Constant proximity gave ancient humans something else: redundancy. Your survival didn't depend entirely on you noticing your own problems. Other people were watching too. If you became weak, someone might compensate. If you couldn't carry something, someone else could. If you were injured, someone could help. The group itself became part of your safety system, and suddenly, the lack of privacy looks different. It wasn't simply a disadvantage, it was a trade. Less solitude, more awareness, less personal space, more immediate support, less ability to disappear, more people noticing when something went wrong. But there was another cost: secrets. Imagine living with the same people almost every day. They know where you sleep, they know who you spend time with. They know when you're upset, they know when you suddenly start acting differently. How much can you actually hide? In a small community, information becomes incredibly valuable. Who can be trusted? Who shares food? Who causes conflict? Who keeps promises? Who knows the safest route? Who has broken a rule before? That information doesn't need a database. It lives inside people's memories. It moves through conversations. It becomes reputation. And reputation can become a form of social control. You might not have a security camera watching you, but you might have 20 people who know exactly who you are. That's a very different kind of surveillance, and it can work both ways. You can be judged, but you can also be protected. Someone remembers what happened to you. Someone remembers what you did for them. Someone remembers who helped your family during a difficult season. Your identity isn't stored inside a profile on a screen. It's stored inside other people's memories. And this is where ancient privacy becomes much more complicated than simply saying they had none. They clearly had personal boundaries, but those boundaries were negotiated through relationships. The same thing happened with possessions. Modern life makes ownership feel almost automatic. This is my phone. This is my wallet. This is my room. This is my drawer. And if I don't want you touching something, I lock it away. But ancient humans also had personal possessions: tools, clothing, ornaments, containers, weapons, objects made for a particular person. Some belongings could be strongly associated with individuals, while other resources were shared by families or groups. The exact rules varied enormously. But the important part is this: you don't need a lock to recognize that something belongs to someone. You need a social agreement. If everyone knows that this tool belongs to you, then touching it without permission can still cross a boundary. Again, the boundary isn't in the object, it's in the relationship. And that's when this story starts becoming surprisingly modern. Because think about how much privacy you actually use every day. You close your bedroom door, you put your phone face down, you wear headphones, you take a shower alone, you sit in your car for 5 extra minutes before going inside. You walk somewhere without telling anyone where you're going. You ignore a message because you don't feel like responding. You turn off your notifications. You want nobody to need anything from you for a little while. Why? Because being constantly available is exhausting. Your brain has to respond to sounds, faces, questions, expectations, interruptions, and social information. Modern privacy gives you something ancient humans had to create in smaller ways: control over access. Your bedroom door says, "Not now." Your headphones say, "I don't want to interact." Your phone on silent says, "You cannot reach me right now." Your car becomes a tiny private room. Even sitting alone in a crowded cafe can create a psychological boundary. And here's the important part: it would be too simple to say that ancient humans evolved specifically to need bedrooms, doors, or modern solitude. They didn't. The architecture is new. The underlying human problem is older. Humans have always had to manage how much access other people have to them. Sometimes we want connection. Sometimes we want protection. Sometimes we want help. And sometimes we just want everyone to leave us alone. The tools changed. The need to negotiate the boundary didn't. An ancient person might move a little away from the group. You close a bedroom door. An ancient person might rely on a social rule that certain moments were not to be interrupted. You lock the bathroom. An ancient person might protect personal information through relationships and reputation. You put a password on your phone. An ancient person might protect an object through community expectations. You lock a drawer. Different technology. Same human question. How much access should other people have to me? And there is one more uncomfortable possibility. Maybe modern humans didn't simply invent more privacy. Maybe we also became more dependent on it. Because today, you can escape almost instantly. You can leave the room, close the door, block the number, turn off the notifications, move to another city, create an entirely different online identity. Ancient humans often had far fewer opportunities to disappear from their social world. That meant conflict could be harder to escape, but it also meant relationships could be harder to abandon. If someone knew you deeply, they knew your history. They knew what you were good at. They knew when you were struggling. They knew when you needed help. There was nowhere to become completely invisible. That could be suffocating, but it could also be deeply protective, and maybe that's why this subject feels so strangely familiar. Because even with all our walls, doors, locks, passwords, and private rooms, humans still struggle with the same problem. Too much connection can exhaust us. Too much isolation can hurt us. We want people close enough to help, but far enough away to breathe. We want to be known, but not constantly watched. We want someone to notice when we're struggling, but we don't always want them asking questions. We want connection, and we want control. Ancient humans had to negotiate that balance without the architecture we take for granted. They built boundaries from distance, from custom, from trust, from reputation, from relationships, from shared expectations, and sometimes, probably, from simply walking a little farther away from everyone else. So when you close your bedroom door tonight, don't think of it as something civilization invented from nothing. Think of it as the latest version of a very old human behavior. The tools changed, the environment changed, the walls became stronger, the locks became better, the rooms became larger. But the question never disappeared. Who gets access to me? Who doesn't? And when do I need to be alone? Ancient humans didn't survive because they never needed privacy. They survived because they learned how to create boundaries in a world where boundaries couldn't always be built with walls. Civilization didn't invent the need for privacy. It simply gave that ancient need a door. And tonight, when you close yours, you'll be doing something humans have been trying to do for thousands of generations, staying connected to the people who keep you alive, while still finding a small space that belongs only to you. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to BackTimes, hit the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves history.